today we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Ben Miller, our Senior Vice President of Data Science here at Bonterra, and Mallory Erickson, founder and CEO of Practivated and co-founder of Fundraising AI. So we are in for such a treat, everyone. Buckle in, grab your water, grab your lunch, and join us for a very insightful session from both Ben and Mallory. So with that, Ben, I'll go ahead and pass it to you.
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate the warm introduction. Want to talk through the agenda today. It's going to be action-packed. We're talking about year-end fundraising. We're talking about AI. So there's dual purpose here, right? One of them is going to be to make sure everyone feels comfortable with AI and understanding how to leverage it in general. And then the other is focus, laser focus on the year end as such an important time to raise money. And we want to make sure not just that you're ready for year end, but that the amplification that can be provided using AI can be leveraged for this year end and most important piece. So we're going to be talking through some common pitfalls. We're going to be talking about how to deepen your relationship, which you might not have known AI can help you with. We are going to talk about practical tips, authentic, making sure you're authentic. There's a word in here and somewhere on the side, synthetic. We don't want to be synthetic. We want to be authentic. And then where you can get started, where to even just start your journey. Hopefully most of you have started the journey, but if you haven't, don't worry, we're going to help you get ready to launch. So with that, we're going to start off with a quick poll here to try to gauge where you all are. So please take a minute, and I'm going to sort of filibuster here while you fill out this poll so that we can make sure you get your poll in so we know where you are. We want to know if you're good, comfortable, a novice, an expert. Where are you so that we can make sure we tailor this discussion to exactly where you are. Hopefully I've given you enough time there.
Yeah, we've got lots of responses flowing in, Ben. I would say great news. Most folks are either very comfortable with it, somewhat comfortable with it. But we've got a couple of folks that are curious, but not many folks that are uncomfortable. So we're doing good.
Wonderful. Well, we've got our work cut out for us then, and we know where we are, and we're going to start from there. So with that, we're going to go into the next slide here, and I'm going to talk to you about the first pitfall. And this one is related to confusing ethics with readiness. During our discussion of building this slide out, Mallory had this great insight when we were talking about, like, wait a minute, one of these things that's an obstacle that people, hesitate to jump in is that they're confusing being ready for AI and being able to use AI ethically, right, which is part of being ready, with, oh, AI is not ethical, I'm not going to use it. It's to use that word again, synthetic, or it's not part of my journey because my data is not safe, my data is not secure, whatever ethical concerns one might have. That is not the same thing, right? Because if you're ready and you know how to handle AI and you know how to have the governance structure in place, you're able to tackle those ethical concerns head on. And as someone who's in building this stuff from Bonterra's side of the house, we've baked the ethics right into this thing, right? And so and I know, Mallory, on your end, the same thing is true for you. And so maybe I just turn it over to you for a second and talk us through the rest of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to sort of name the distinction, or to be really like honest with ourselves about where fear might create barriers that aren't actually ethical barriers, but feel like ethical barriers just because they create a lot of uncertainty and fear inside of us. I know this has been true for me as somebody who's not a technologist, and really was why I first got involved in fundraising AI, was because of all my concerns, not actually all of my excitement. And so I totally resonate with all of those pieces. And I just think that it's really important, because if we are really concerned about ethics, we have to be engaged. We have to be in the tools. And I was sharing with you beforehand, a big part of, Practivated obviously is built with the fundraising AI framework at its core, but I had to start building in order to be able to see where all of those pillars made sense, and it really surfaced for me as I started to build where the ethical issues lie. And I think if we wait until a certain amount of ethical readiness without any actual AI readiness or engagement, we're never going to actually be able to solve the ethical problems we are concerned about.
Right on. So get ready, and let's go on to the next pitfall. I do see a question there, but we'll come back to that about exactly where the possibilities are for exploring. But Mallory, take it away.
Yeah. And then the other thing, this ties right into what we were just talking about, which is, I think there is a lot, obviously, about AI that can make us uncomfortable. And this is one of those technologies, though, where leaning into that discomfort and starting to embrace a growth mindset, a learning mindset is so important, because I think one of the pitfalls is that we're like, oh, like, I don't even know where to start, so I'm not going to engage at all. And so much of, understanding AI is around building that muscle memory, that comfort, experimenting, trying things, avoiding, perfectionism, and recognizing that the tool itself, and like the use of generative AI in particular, gets better as you use it. So I think we're so used to technologies where, and I'm this way too, right? Like something doesn't work. I remember when Snapchat came out, I like downloaded it, I opened it. There was something that was not intuitive to me about how that platform worked. I closed it, deleted it, never went back into it, right? Because I was just like, I don't understand. I don't understand what's happening here. And I think AI is so different than that, because when we get those moments of like, I didn't get the result that I wanted, or maybe I didn't prompt this perfectly, instead of going into, I'm bad at prompting, I'm bad at AI, we actually just need to engage in a really human way with it to get the results and the support that we're looking for. And so we just really wanted to sort of like bust this myth that it's about getting it perfect right out of the gate, because it really is about progress and process and experimentation.
Yeah, and I have a great example of like how this applies to us just in general. Like if you think of cars, and a lot of us don't necessarily understand the mechanics of a car, and so we just take it to the mechanic to fix it, and but if you always took your car to a mechanic every time the air pressure sign came up and your like tire pressure is low, and didn't realize that, like, wait a minute, it could just be this changing temperature outside, and all I need to do is put a little air in this. You'd waste so much time going to the mechanic all the time. AI is more like that, where it's like if you start to understand the what's possible, to get back to that question, you start to understand, oh, I can just do this little thing. I could just go to the gas station, fill up my air on the side. I don't have to go to the mechanic, right? And the same is true here with AI. You roll up your sleeves, you start to get to know it, and you start to tame this thing that you
Mm.
don't. And as you start to tame it, it gets easier and easier to be ethical. It gets easier and easier to understand how to leverage it and optimize it. So expecting AI to do it all, sort of along the same lines, right? Like if I'm just going to go and send my car to the mechanic anytime there's something going on to fill my
Mm.
gas tank, then that's a problem, right? Like AI is not here to just do your job. And I think that's another big concern people have. You have to be driving, and you can't drive without understanding what's going on and where you're needed. And so a lot of times I've seen folks kind of go in and test it and say, okay, write me an email. And then they just critique the email and say, well, that's not what I would write, and I'm going to leave away. Well, that's not how you use it, right? And if we did, then we would be all, in a worse place. So you really need to understand what it's capable of, how it's good at what it does. It can summarize really well. It can start a blank page really well, but your context, your insight, your expertise needs to be woven in. Mallory, anything to add there?
Yeah, the other thing I'll add here is that I would take this and also think about how you work best and sort of like how your brain
Yes.
works, and know that it could be different for you than for everybody else. So I'm neurodivergent, and I actually cannot have AI write a draft for me and then edit it. Like I can't get my brain to like edit. Like editing is very, very hard, and focusing on editing is very, very hard. What I can do though is voice dictate content and then have AI clean it up for me so that those are actually complete sentences and make sense to another reader. And I think part of that has to do with my like neurodivergence and just like how my brain works. And so recognizing that, you know what, AI is never going to be a first draft friend for me. And like, that's okay. And so for you guys too, like as you're figuring out the relationship between AI and your like humaning work, just knowing that it's a little bit different for everybody.
And just another point there, because first of all, I love the voice dictation. We're going to get into that a little later, but um, if you're expecting that you're going to come to your AI tool and that you're going to save 85% of your time by using it, well, that's not what's going to happen. We're saying like 100%, right? Like it's not going to be that. What it can do is it can save you about 10, 15, 20, 30% even, as much as, right? But there's still that 70% required from you, whether it is going in and editing, whether it is just getting ahead of the editing and making all that context there. So I think understanding that balance is a really critical part for leveraging AI. So we're on to the next, which is for getting human oversight. And Mallory, I think this is you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is completely tied to the last one,
Yeah.
right? Which is that we really want to make sure, and we're going to get into all the strategies, but we really wanted to start with sort of like talking about these components because they're integrated into the strategies that we're going to share with you today, right? Which is that you are so important in how we think about AI and how we think about its use, both in terms of like not expecting it to do everything for us, but also recognizing that like our oversight is really, really important here, right? And it's not actually to me just about quote unquote what AI could get wrong. I think there's like, because I think there might be a moment where like there are a lot less mistakes than we've experienced months ago. And that actually doesn't change for me how I feel about human insight, oversight, because I think our role in decision making is really important. Our agency in what's happening with this technology is really important. Our accountability to how these touch points are interacting with our donors is really important. And that, we want like to what is in the slide also around like transparency, right? So like knowing, always being involved in what data, prompts, context is shaping these different results is so important. We don't want these things just running in the background, never touched, and then we wonder why we're getting certain results that we are. So we've got to be embedded in all of it. Ben, what else do you want to add to this one?
That's it. I would just throw out from our vantage point, Mallory, that as we're building these tools, that we're doing as much as we can to provide this context inside of this as well. But even still, to Mallory's point, like there's your last mile, like even it needs to be you. Like the human needs to be in there. The human needs to make the decisions, and the human needs to be directing the traffic. So love it. And if we want to take the next slide, um, this is I love this image, so I included it, but just like meant to say like it's a key to get into there, right? Like AI makes us more human. That's not a statement that maybe resonates with everyone when they first hear it, right? Um, but like you'll see that what it can do is enable connection. A lot of times, I think you've talked about this a little bit there, Mallory, and I think that maybe you and I are similar in how we're sort of interacting with our AI. And like it's funny how like you kind of give personality to the different ones. But the point is that like the way my brain works, it doesn't always pick up on subtle clues, or doesn't always pick up on exactly the main point I'm trying to make, or doesn't exactly pick up what is this person asking me? Like, what don't they understand that I do, and what I don't understand that they do, right? And one of the things that AI allows me to do is connect with people easier because it's seeing things I'm not seeing. It's like, oh, this person's not asking for this particular thing. I actually sometimes just throw in information. I'm confused about this question to me. What is this person saying? And it is remarkably great at me putting on a different framework. Oh, I get it now. The vantage point from this person was here. They were talking about this. My mind was over here and thinking about this. And it's just an enabler of like, just it transfers that knowledge to you, and it just supercharges your brain's ability to kind of interpret things and see it. So I see it as a doorway, a key way into that connection and into that making us human. And with that, I'll pass it off to you, Mallory.
Okay, I love that. And yeah, you just teed this next part up perfectly. And I actually want to ask in the chat because I need a little bit to know who's there other than my friend Coach Tibby, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. But I'm curious for folks in the chat, like how often you, especially when you're stressed in your fundraising, feel like you've had a conversation with somebody and they heard one thing and you heard another, or there are sort of those like mixed signals. You can just give me a Y in the chat if you're willing to admit it. But I think what Ben is talking about here is so important and so normal, right? Like we're always actually seeing the world through our perceptions and our beliefs and our past experiences. And I won't go too deep into the science around it, but there's a great Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett has done a lot of work on this, her book, How Emotions Are Made. And she talks a lot about the way that we actually simulate our reality based on our past experiences. And so we don't just see things sort of as they are, we see them as what we're looking for. And there's a lot of science around this in particular. And so I think what Ben is saying is so important because I also really feel like AI helps me pull out of some of those like assumptions or the tunnel vision, the things that I'm focused on and worried about, and just gives me like a much more zoomed out experience. And, that relates a lot to, when we are stressed, which maybe you're willing to admit this part, right? Like it's October 8th. Like, how is it October? How are we in Q4? I can't believe we're already talking about end of year fundraising. So maybe you just want to give me a little why if you're feeling just a little bit of stress right now, because I want to like highlight the way that AI can actually help address some of that stress inside you and why it's so important. Because when our stress response is on, okay, when we're in our back brain, our lizard brain, and we're experiencing fight, flight, freeze, burnout, whatever you want to call it, chronic stress, all of those things, these other parts of our brain actually turn off. So we lose our ability for empathy, creativity, connection, relationship building, flexibility, collaboration, all these things that are so important for your campaigns and your conversations for the end of the year. They turn off biologically when we are in a stress state. So for me, one of my like real passions is around how we use AI to decrease fear, increase confidence, decrease stress, to make us more open to connection, not just in terms of the time it gives us, but like the internal capacity it gives us, because it's getting us out of that like, stress state. Ben, anything this is bringing up for you?
Just can't believe it's October, that Halloween's around the corner. Can't believe Giving Tuesday's coming up. I can't believe we're talking about year end, but other than that, all good.
Okay, so Ben is officially in his back brain, okay? And so you can do some like bilateral tapping or grab a sensory sticker. But I want to talk about like how you can use it to decrease stress. So I'm going to give you a few different examples here, and they're related really to the one-on-one work that is so important for end of year. So we're going to talk about these sort of like one-to-one relationships, how you can use AI to deepen them, and then we'll talk about the campaign like component of using AI sort of at scale. So one of my tips is around using AI to personalize outreach one-to-one. And this doesn't just mean using AI to like put in a first name in an email that you send to everybody. It's actually about how you use generative AI to support you as a thought partner in a one-on-one strategy with a donor. So Practivated is a new tool on the market that I built and launched this year. Inside Practivated, there's two main ways that folks use the product. They practice for donor conversations and build skills and get feedback around that. And they also have on-demand coaching with Tivy, who's here in the chat, our octopus. We love Tivy. And they can go to Tivy and talk to Tivy about anything. But the biggest use case that we see actually, which is incredible, is conversations about a particular donor and how to tailor messaging, strategy, find their alignment with an area. How do you get them to do a matching gift for Giving Tuesday? And this isn't just about Practivated. I'm going to show you how you can have these conversations, but whatever generative AI tool you're using probably has a voice mode that opens up your ability to really have a strategic conversation about a particular donor so that you have that thought partner and can tailor per person. As a coach, as a consultant, I could never be there to do this with clients on every single donor they need to do this with for end of year. Generative AI is a really scalable solution to allow you to be more like customized and intentional with each donor one-to-one. Ben, is there anything you want to add there before I show them an example?
Nope. Let's keep the show going, and I'll jump to the next one.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, the sound's not up.
Oh, we're not able to hear it?
No.
Oh, okay. Let me go ahead. See if I can. Try that.
Yeah, this is a Zoom thing where you have to
Share sound. Yes.
Yes.
We have recorded many Practivated videos soundless on accident.
Hello, Mallory. How are you doing?
Hi, good, Tivy. I need your help with something. I'm feeling really nervous about this conversation, but I have a donor who's funded 2 apprenticeship placements at Beacon Bridge Collective for the past 3 years through their family foundation. And I'm trying to invite them into a larger multi-year unrestricted commitment to help scale our employer partnership lab. And in the past, they've really loved specific success stories and tangible outcomes for participants, but I'm concerned about losing their interest if I shift the conversation towards unrestricted systems level funding. How can I approach this conversation so it feels like concrete and aligned with their values while still expanding their investment?
You're not alone in feeling that tension, Mallory. It makes perfect sense. You're inviting them into a bigger vision, and it feels risky to move away from the concrete outcomes they've historically valued. But here's the key. You're not abandoning tangibility. You're elevating it. Frame the conversation by connecting the outcomes they already love to the necessary infrastructure that makes those outcomes possible and scalable. For example, you've seen how these apprenticeships change lives, and I want to share what it takes behind the scenes to make these kinds of outcomes reliable, equitable, and accessible at scale. Then, draw a direct line between their past gifts and the broader systems work. The Employer Partnership Lab is how we match more talent to opportunity faster and build the employer side so that every placement doesn't rely on heroics. Investing in this means more stories like insert participant name they knew. You're not asking them to shift values. You're helping them evolve how they express them philanthropically. Want to walk through how to tease out one specific outcome story that anchors this shift?
So the thing that I really want you to see there, and I put this in the chat, was like, notice how I was honest about my fears and my concerns too, right? I'm really nervous about this. Like, one of the things I think that is so incredible about generative AI is the ability to say those nuances and then get responses that include that, right? So she started with validation around where I was at. She helped tailor a response both to my hesitation and a limiting belief that I was holding about the donor around my nerves, but then also a really strategic advice around that donor. So I just think that, I want to encourage people to have more like real kind of conversations with tools, whatever your tool is, because that's how you're going to get the most valuable answer. And Ben, I think you had something you wanted to add here as well.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone noticed how much context Mallory gave. Context is such an important and critical piece of talking with an LLM or getting what you need out of the LLM. You could see how it picked up on the many different things that it would not otherwise if you had just said, I need to ask somebody for money this coming, thing. But explaining why, where your fears are, what things you need to overcome, how you're fearful of connecting this gift with this particular thing, it allows you to isolate the friction points and really narrow in on the things that you need to narrow in on, and becomes so much more valuable when you have that much context.
Yes. And you can always add that context later. Like,
Yes.
I mean, I think giving that context up front is really important. But one of the cool things is that when you notice if you're not getting a specific answer that you want, you can add more context and be like, okay, I think I should have told you this because that might have would have changed your answer. And that's one of the really cool pieces I think about conversation components
Yes.
like that. And then this tip is actually related to what Ben was saying before about helping him see things in maybe his own communication or conversations using generative AI that he wasn't seeing naturally. And I was saying that too, which is, one of the things we really focus on in Practivated is helping people get the feedback that they need, really targeted and specific feedback to reflect and grow their skills and move conversations forward with intention. And I know, Ben, you were literally saying the top line of this before, and I talk about this a lot in fundraising, where I felt so uncomfortable fundraising and I felt like everybody understood something that I just wasn't understanding, and there was this secret to conversations, this secret language that like I just wasn't getting. Part of that's also perhaps my neurodivergence a little bit, but I think even really skilled fundraisers often struggle to understand why some conversations move relationships forward and others don't. And so inside Practivated, we actually look at 16 different skill indicators across 4 different areas to really break down what creates connection, what moves money. And so one thing I want folks to do is think about how you can use AI to get feedback on things and to be really specific about the feedback that you want. If you were to put a transcript without any identifiable information from a recorded donor call in your generative AI tool of choice, without any private information, and then you said something like, was this a good call? Like, you're not going to get good results from that, right? Like, you need to be really specific about the type of feedback that you want. And if somebody sent me a transcript and said, was this a good donor conversation, I would be like, well, what was the point of the conversation, number one? And then also, like, what are all these other, I would be looking at all these other components. So I'll give you an example of how generative AI can do this on the next spot, really kind of like illuminate your own biases and blind spots.
Hello, Mallory. How can I support you in improving the ask effectiveness? I've seen your feedback and conversation. Let's explore how we can strengthen this area together.
Can you just give me one piece of feedback about something I could have said that would have improved my score here?
Absolutely, Mallory. After the donor shared that even modest giving feels hard right now, you acknowledged and respected their situation, which was strong. But instead of moving quickly into a suggestion for hosting an event, you could have first asked a values-based question to better understand what kind of support might feel empowering and doable for them. For instance, I really hear that inner conflict. It's so clear how much you care. When you think about staying connected to the mission right now, what kinds of involvement feel energizing or realistic for you, even if they're not financial? That would have deepened alignment, made the eventual suggestion more tailored, and likely improved your score in both ask effectiveness and structure. Want to brainstorm a few ways to gently explore that kind of alignment before offering next steps in future conversations?
So this just gives you an idea of like the specificity. I think for me, one of the most like oh my gosh, I don't think I meant to have that keep going, but one of the most incredible things about generative AI is that if you saw on the screen, like those 16 indicators, as a human coach, I could never listen to a 10-minute donor conversation, score a fundraiser unbiasedly on 16 indicators, and then be able to tell them exactly why they got that score and exactly what they could have done differently to improve that score area. I mean, that is the power of a tool like generative AI, to be able to digest data like that and give you instantaneous feedback in a way that is meaningful, tailored, specific to who you are. So I just want to make sure, like, whatever tool you're using to do this, I just want to make sure you're being kind of clear about the type of feedback that you want, and that you are kind of like recognizing its ability to support you and your growth and your openness and confidence per connection. This is really new. I'm just sharing it with folks here. We just analyzed 370 conversations inside Practivated across 106 fundraisers to learn like what is happening in donor conversations that's working, where are folks kind of like naturally demonstrating skills, and where are the biggest challenges that we're seeing, and what to do about them. So especially as you're thinking about your end of year fundraising conversations, the information in here, the data in here is unbelievable. So highly recommend. And this is another great thing to think about around your teams, is how do you look at across your teams the conversations that are being had where people are struggling and might need some additional support, and sort of how do you understand trends across your team where you should be focusing your trainings, right? As a trainer, and then I'm sure this happens to you too, sometimes people will be like, oh, can you come and talk about storytelling? And part of me wants to be like, is storytelling your problem? Like, how do we know that, right? And so I think one of the things that's really great also about like analyzing where folks are at and some of their strengths and challenges when it comes to donor conversations is being able to then provide trainings that meet them where they are, and be able to like move those conversations forward instead of picking like more kind of not arbitrary, but like hot topics that we don't necessarily know are the missing pieces on our teams.
And I'm going to just take over here for the next slide, but I wanted to mention one thing, or maybe I'm not yet. I wanted to mention one thing, which was, while we're not trying to push like our stuff, we want to make this accessible to everyone so you can understand that you can do these types of things with any LLM out there. that said, I'm saying that, but with a caveat. The thing that that you'll see with why Practivated had such a wonderful response, and why Q, which we just launched next week, also is sort of set up in this way. And here's how you can do it without those two things. But so just give me a second. Is there's a framework built in. There is so that the LLM can do what it's good at doing. There is a framework, a constraint, a construction, so that it knows how to navigate and get to that best answer. And you can see that maybe you can't as an outside, but I can see it as a person who's been building these things on the back end. Those 16 different things and how. And so I'm pointing that out, both A, to show you, but B, if you're using another one that's not ours, which, I'm hoping some of you are using other stuff as well, but you can set up those parameters around your LLM as well, right? You can put that framework together. And again, it's like about providing additional context. It's about providing additional space for the LLM to do what it's magic at doing, but then the guardrails so that you can keep your objective at the forefront. Anyway, I could see it clearly in that last one, and I just wanted to call it out without being self-serving and trying to make sure that everyone understands it's applicable across the board. Put a framework together, LLMs work much better inside of it.
Yes, yes, and totally. I mean, I just don't want people to feel like Practivated is the only way to do any of these things, of course. But yes, you're not going to get the same results when you use a generic AI tool as you will with a tool that's built for your use case and your outcomes, right? So Tivi is trained by us, and so she has fundraising expertise that ChatGPT and Claude don't sort of inherently prioritize. And so the results are going to be different. You can compare them side by side, but with anything that you use, they're all going to be better if you give them some of those like heuristics, guardrails, clarity about how you want the evaluation to be happening. So that's sort of like similar to what I was going to say here. We're about to jump into campaigns, but the other thing, I was talking a little bit about how you could use generative AI to analyze kind of trends and challenges across your teams and how they're communicating about things. But you can also do that to ensure campaign consistency and messaging. So I think one thing that's super important as we're thinking about end of year and all the campaign pieces that Ben's going to be talking about is that we want to make sure that we are connecting the dots between what those campaigns are saying in direct mail and emails and text messages and videos and what our one-on-one conversations are focused on. And I actually think that generative AI is a great way to do a little bit of a training and analysis there, just to make sure like, hey, how I talked about this in this donor meeting, does that match the language that's being used? And I know a lot of people are creating new campaign language right now, and a lot of folks are repositioning how they talk about certain programs in their organizations. And so message consistency and using AI to ensure that can be very, very, very helpful. And then the other thing I'll say, we do this in Practivated, but you could, if you're using a recording device on donor conversations that are happening on Zoom, something I always felt as a fundraiser was I would be talking to a donor about something and I would wish like I would say something and I would be like, oh my God, that was it. Like the way I described that was like, I've never described that program so well before. And, I didn't have a recording at the, however many years ago now. And so I would think about how you use some of those conversations to pull out some of those sound bites and stories and put them into your campaigns. We've started to pull out like key phrases to repurpose when somebody says something like really amazing in one of these donor simulated conversations. But this is something you can totally do with whatever, maybe it's a team meeting where you're talking about the program. Get into that transcript, like pull out some of that language. There's just so much like alignment that can come from that and content, frankly.
Awesome. So if we want to go to the next slide, so now we're going to kind of move into, so we've been talking to you and I want to try to shake it up a little bit. So like everyone take a break and take a minute for a second. We've been talking a lot at you and we're trying to get you familiar with AI, get you familiar with how to best interact with it. But now, we talked about my fear-based year-end brain. We're going to get into year-end. We're going to get into how to leverage these things to make the most out of year-end. So I don't want this to be as much one way of a discussion. For one, of course, Mallory and I will discuss, but I'd like it if in the comments here, you can also throw out questions. You've got concerns about year end. You want to use AI. How can you use it? We're here to help you. I believe, again, we're not going to throw out some claim that you're going to get 30 times more efficient by the year end by using AI, but you can certainly do a lot more with AI. And we're going to try to show you how and what it's good at, what it's bad at, where you should leverage, where you should use. So you'll see over to the left just some, charts about where things are and what things are going on. And one thing that AI is really good at is helping to analyze and summarize things. So if you're able to give it a bunch of metrics and you tell it that my number one thing is I want to make sure retention is up this particular year end, or I want to focus on this first, second, and third, look over my numbers and determine what strategies I should take to impact these different things. So for example, if my new donor retention's at 20%, sector's at 23%, what do I do? What are some things to do there? And AI is really exceptional at coming up with some good ideas and strategies. Again, you'll need to kind of give it context around what your donors are doing. These new donors were flash new donors. They came from some emergency appeal. Well, then there's a different strategy for that, right? And so those are the types of context we were talking about earlier that you'll want to get, but you can help have a better, a smarter plan. So I would throw in your entire year-end plan now. This is what I'm planning to do from here to the year end. Give me 3 things that you think I could do to improve it, right? Or you've written that appeal and it's great. And you've got an email version, you got a direct mail version, throw it against the large language model. That's what the LLM meant, sorry. Throw it against an AI and ask, where would you polish this up? What are some best practices I'm not following here? These types of things to call out and improve. And then testing better. So like you could now write 4 or 5 variations relatively easily. So now do it. Test now so that when you get to Giving Tuesday or Thanksgiving, you can have that tested communications already ready to go. Maybe do 10 variants and then you can come back and analyze them. So the way to make those quick little easy variants is so much easier now that if you have a nice base that you can use. You can also keep your analysis done easier. One of the things we've launched in Q is this every night doing a fundraising analyst job. It pulls together all sorts of numbers so they can say, okay, how is my organization doing today compared to last year? How's my organization doing to other similar types of organizations today? And with that, I'm doing all of this work in the background overnight that I don't have to do. And you can set it up for yourself to do the same exact thing. And then pressure testing. I love this one. Anytime you have an idea, I like to pressure test it. What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? What's one thing I could improve? And these are all just ways that you can implement into your year-end campaign. Mallory, anything you want to add there before we go to the next slide?
No, I'm with you. Everything.
Cool.
Love everything.
All right. So on the next slide, I added this because who doesn't love what is it? The movie where we had the Isle of Misfit Toys. I think that's what we're seeing here, even though it's not. But I just loved an Advent calendar as well. So we threw it in here and threw Giving Tuesday on the 2nd, which is December 2nd. And when we put Thanksgiving over to the left. But the whole point here is that year end actually has seasons of its own, right? It's not just this one monolith. Most of the money comes in the last day. And then Giving Tuesday is another big day that you need to be prepared for. And those are almost 2 separate things altogether on their own. And then there's the time in between. And then there's the urgency and clarity that you need for the final week. And so there's a lot happening, right? I think all of us know that. A lot happens year end. And sometimes it feels like it's partly the most quiet part of the year as well, because a lot of people have kind of like done all the work leading up to year end and kind of like, well, let's see what happens type of thing. Well, AI can help you throughout the entirety, right? So for one, you don't need to sit back. You can have like up to the minute what's going on. How did the Giving Tuesday results impact what I should do the next week before I get to year end? Did I get in as many new donors as I was hoping? If I didn't, are there any additional channels that I can go and try to find? What stories are going to resonate during Thanksgiving versus during year end? How am I going to touch my non-Christian donors, and what am I going to messaging going to be to them? And and this kind of customization, this kind of planning, this kind of staying on top of your program is all possible right now with AI. And I think that you should try to figure out a way to set up an apparatus If not through Q and Bonterra, or not through Practivated, not through an existing LM, find something to help you, because the leverage is there and it can make your fundraising this year end that much more impactful. So let me stop there. Mallory, anything you wanted to add?
No, I love this, and as somebody who you know, feels like the days like zoom by, just being able to use generative AI to sort of like help me orient and tailor, it's just, yeah, no, I'm with you.
I included this image because I thought that everyone would relate year end. Like, we have too many things going on all at once, and let AI help you. But I also thought that I love the headline here, right? QUE, sorry for the question there. But year-end success, it's not about retention. It's about, I'm sorry, it's about retention, not just response. We're not just trying to get people to give. We never just want to get people to give. That becomes a transactional relationship, right? I'm only going to give, and you've only cared about me giving this particular gift. You don't care about who I am, what I like, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to achieve. And that's not the goal. And a lot of times when we go into year end, we're focused on things that we know, make better response rates, a match, or something that we know, tools that we know that are at our fingertips that we can implement, that we know are going to generate a higher response. That's good, and you shouldn't go away from response, but your focus should be maintaining the relationship with your donors. I mean, it starts back where we started a little while back. Use AI to help with that relationship. Use your communications to help with that relationship. Don't just ask people for money and then forget about them for another year, right? You need to figure out ways to engage those lapsed donors who are more likely, who are more primed to give at year end. So use AI to help you find the right audience. Use AI to help you talk to that audience. Use AI to help you figure out if there's multiple different messages you should be sending to those lapsed donors. Look at a thank you note automation that you might need to do for anyone who's coming on, either lapsed or new. Make sure they understand how much you appreciate them. It is hard to have all of these things in the air. Let AI help you. That is the main purpose of this slide here, is that there are plenty of ways that you can unlock AI to help with all of the things that you're juggling with right now. So with that, Mallory, do you have anything you wanted to add in there?
The one thing I'll just say is, when it comes to like thank yous and touch points and things like that, I would plan and do all the things that Ben mentioned before the end of your campaign.
Yes.
Like, the way that motivation works is like, when we get, and this, it goes for events too, right? We're like, oh, I'll write the thank you notes like after the event, write them before the event, like send them after the event. But the truth is, like, our motivation, like, we get to that peak and we like, our motivation really dips. So all the things he's talking about, looking at those stewardship pieces and those touch points, you really want to do that and get that ready to roll before the campaign ends.
Cool. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Q. Okay. I'm sorry. I talked a little bit about it, but hey, we launched this last year. It's the first agentic AI, or last week, and it's the first agentic AI in the market. And what it can do is incredible. All of this context we were talking about earlier, we've built into it, right? So there's a comment over here asking about how do you summarize donors? Yes. So for one, there's a privacy concern there. We're going to talk about ethics in the next slide here. And so I'll go into that in just a second. But yes, identifying, you could just throw all of your donations in there, but then you're relying on the LLM to make sense of this, which it's not always going to do the right thing, right? So what's better is to provide a curated data set, which is what we've done, right? We have said, okay, we're not just going to throw all the data and have LLMs try to figure out how to make sense of it. Instead, we know how to make sense of it, right? We know what retention is important. We know first year and multi-year retention are the elements that go into retention. We know that if you break it out by first and multi-year retention, you're able to figure out, well, is it my active file that know me for a long time, or is it the brand new ones that are not getting the messaging? And so we have curated the data set. This is that overnight analytics that happens. And then there's also a bunch of coaching. And in this case, it's not the same thing as the Practivated, where it's coaching a donor to have stewardship and having a conversation with the donor and really focused on that major gift and having that built that one-on-one relationship. But it's more focused on, okay, here are some best practices for reaching out to your donors during year end. Have urgency, but make sure that you don't have deliverability issues because you've had all caps in your subject line, or that your subject line is a little too far, those types of tips and practice. So there's a coach baked into Q. We're introducing real soon the ability to create an email and create a form, and all sorts of different skills are going to be releasing over the next several months that are going to make this even more impactful. But all of the things here, to answer your question, is are helping to drive, okay, what segment is going to do the right for upgrading? What segment is going to be the right group for becoming a sustainer? How do I summarize that group? How do I summarize this group? And we're utilizing all of the donor trends predictive models that we have inside of our background to make this out of the box, this awesome coach that you can have right at your fingertips, pick an audience for you, tell you how you're doing, compare you to other organizations, help you write the context and help you write the content to get in front of those people with the right message, right time, right place. Super excited. Sorry, I had to have a little bit of a comment on that, but I'll leave it alone and back away from Q, and we can go into ethics. Okay. All right. Cool. So this one's very important. I put Bonterra's AI ethic framework up here, but this was born out of a conversation. It's how I got first involved with fundraising AI to start with, and want to applaud Mallory and fundraising AI for all the great work they have done to bring AI to the forefront of the nonprofit discussion. And at the very front of that conversation has been ethics. And I am super grateful for fundraising AI, and they have posted an ethical tenet that you can come get, that we are continuing to evolve and continuing to work on. These are the 6 tenets that we pulled out that have been a growth off of that off of the fundraising AI, to address all of these things. I could go into each one, but I'm going to start with the data security privacy concerns. There is, for one, Bonterra doesn't allow any of your data to ever go to an LLM. So there is a wall between the LLMs, so we're not actually doing directly into a Claude. I'm sorry, I should use those terms. And AI isn't the right word to use either, so it's hard for me to say the right word, but the LLM is the right word, but it doesn't roll off the tongue. It doesn't resonate with folks. But what I'm trying to say is that we don't share any of your data with these LLMs so that they're training off of your data. And so that's very important to make sure. You can classify this depending on your relationship with whatever AI provider you get. Read the fine print and make sure that your privacy is protected, and that your data, which is your most valuable asset, is not just going into these LLMs to create trainings for them. So that is very important. But there are easy guardrails you can put in place to protect your data. There are guardrails you can put in place so that you understand exactly what's happening. Explainability is super important. Transparency is super important. Auditability, accountability, if something goes wrong, being able to figure out where, why, how, fixing it. That human in the loop element we talked about. The environment, the social impact that the AI is having on the environment, and biases, and all of these are the things that make up Bonterra's AI ethical framework and are built off of fundraising AI's framework. And again, it's an evolving thing, but we will continue to stay at the top of it, and we will continue to bake this stuff into our product. And Mallory, I know you're doing the same thing over at Practivated as well, so just wanted to ask you if I could hand it off. I've been talking too much, so I wanted to see if you want to jump in.
No, I love this. And yeah, I mean, when I first started building, I mean, I never thought I would build a technology tool. Like, that was not my goal. In fact, I just wanted Practivated for my clients and in my coaching program, and I started to look for it everywhere. I was like, this must exist, and I couldn't find it. And then I tried to convince my technology friends to build it. They were like, we're doing other things. And I was like, okay, fine, I guess I'll build it. And so I, really all I had were these ethical frameworks to think about. And so I used the pillars of fundraising AI that's on our website, and I just shared the framework with folks to really guide a lot of my early decision making. And then, as I was saying before, it took building Tivi, for example, to realize all the new ethical considerations that needed to be put into the tool. I needed to create the donor avatars to then start to see where things could go wrong, right? And like where and the ethical line or responsible line, even between, when I first came out with the tool in our beta test, the biggest feedback was all your avatars are way too nice. But I had been so concerned about them bullying fundraisers, right? Like, my ethics had indexed so hard on fundraisers feeling okay that I was not giving them real enough experiences of what they're actually navigating on a day-to-day basis. Those are things you can't learn until you're in it. And so I love what you put up here. I love the fundraising AI framework. Ben, you did so much to bring that forward. So we're so grateful for you and Bonterra and all of that support. And I just also want for folks to see, like, you build this as you build your use cases, because you can't see stuff until you're in it.
And even just the act of writing it down. So even if you're a team of one, maybe just write down, these are the things I'm concerned about, and have that be a checklist anytime you use AI to see, am I touching these 6 things? Even just that intentionality will provide a much more ethical outcome. So just having that process is something that you can get started with. Sorry, back to you, Mallory.
Yeah, no, I just want to do something fun. We know it's conversation season and we love Bonterra. And so I just wanted to do something fun and do a little giveaway. So we have a very fun spinner that my team made, and I'll record a little video with the Tivi spinner. But if you're interested in getting inside Practivated, practicing those donor conversations that you have coming up, and really helping like have that support for end of year in particular, you can enter the giveaway, and I'll do the spinner later today, and you'll get inside as soon as possible. So I just wanted to do something a little fun and celebratory. I know that y'all are in it right now, and that there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress with end of year. So just wanted to do something to bring a little joy.
Love
Thank
that.
you.
I'm sure lots of folks will enter for this giveaway, which is awesome for all the folks on the line. And for those folks, if you are entering the giveaway, or if you're not, but if you are interested in hearing from Mallory after today's session, just going to go ahead and launch a quick poll here. Feel free to fill that out. And then once we wrap up today, we'll share your contact information with Mallory and her team, and she can initiate those conversations, provide some additional insight and resources, and continue those conversations. But awesome. While folks are doing that, we can go ahead and transition to Q&A. It looks like we answered most of the questions throughout the session, or Tivi helped us, but there were a couple that I wanted to prompt to Ben and Mallory here. The first question I see here, this came from someone who might not have like the voice tool within the AI tool that they use. So any tips on how to like effectively prompt their AI to get those better responses?
I have a quick one, which is just use another tool. Like your phone has the dictation thing.
Yes.
Just use that, copy and paste, and that's fine too. But any other ideas, Mallory?
No, that's what I was going to say. Use voice dictation in whatever you have, just to be able to have more of that natural conversation and add context that you might not in writing. I would just use that voice dictation. And I've been in situations like that, and I voice dictated a note into my phone, and then I copied it over into whatever tool I'm using. So yeah, anything that just gives you that ability.
Microsoft Word has a dictation tool, so.
Awesome. I do that all the time, folks. Using the voice memos, the voice note app, it's really great. We have a question coming from Jeanette, and Jeanette asks, how do I determine whether they need Bonterra's tools, Practivated, or just using ChatGPT? Everything sounds great, but being a team of one sounds like they can't manage everything. So how do they determine what AI tool overall might be best for them in their organization?
Well, it's Q and Practivated, obviously, but if you need to know, no, I mean, so that's a good question. To answer it honestly, I think you'll want to start, by maybe looking inward and saying what's most important right now. What is most important for the organization? Where are you falling short? Where would you like to improve? And then maybe aligning. And I'm sure Mallory and I would give you unbiased advice as well. We don't, if you could list out those areas where you want to improve. I don't know, Mallory, do you have other thoughts?
No, I think that's great.
Awesome. I'm not sure if I see any other questions that if there are questions that are more related to your specific organization, folks, we're happy to have those conversations on a one-on-one basis. I know that there are some of those coming through the chat, But while we wait, because we have a couple more minutes here, folks, want you all to have the chance to get in some of those last minute questions. Feel free to fill them into the chat or the Q&A while we have Ben and Mallory here. I wanted to go ahead and launch one last poll here, folks. If you are interested in checking out Bonterra's tools and services and our AI-powered fundraising tools, please feel free to fill out this poll that I have launched here. And like I mentioned earlier in our conversation today, once we wrap up here, we'll have one of our colleagues reach out to you to answer those questions, initiate those conversations, and kind of see how Bonterra's tools might be able to help you guys specifically. But while folks are filling that out, let's see if we have any other questions coming through.
Actually, can I go back to the other one really quickly?
Yeah,
Around like
absolutely.
which tool to start with. I think whatever gets you to start. I just kind of want to like add that on. You know, whatever feels like the easiest entry point, I would actually not overthink it. Like if you are leaning towards something and you feel energy around it or you already have it, just like get comfortable with that. Then when you hit a point where you're like, okay, now I'm ready for something that brings me the next 10 yards or whatever, then you can get another tool and you'll feel more capacity to manage both of those because you'll see the different use cases, right? Like I use Claude for some things, I use ChatGPT for other things. I HubSpot AI for other things. So there's all these different, but the most important thing is to, you know, it's so easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis, I think, and which is a part of our stress response. And so it's totally normal. But I think anything that, you know, feels the most manageable to you is the thing to start with.
Yeah, you know what? I was also reflecting on my answer, and I think that first of all, there's a ton of free tools out there. So if you are just trying to get started, use a free tool to get started. One of the coolest things that you can do is ask the ChatGPT or LLM of your choice, Claude or whatever. You could ask, "Here's my situation. What should I do, and what can these AI tools help do for me?" And the responses are actually quite insightful because they know what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, folks, it looks like I don't see any other questions coming in, and we're just almost at about time here. But Ben, Mallory, thank you both so much for your work on this and your time and your expertise sharing it with folks. Looks like we've got a couple of thanks rolling in the chat, which is always a great sign. And for folks on the line, thank you. Thank you for dedicating an hour out of your day to spend with us. Thank you for an engaging, insightful conversation. It's always great when the chat is flowing and the chat is popping off, so to speak, because it always makes for a great session and a really conversational one, which is always best. So we really appreciate you all spending this time with us, and we definitely hope to see you at our next session. We are hosting one on the 30th of this month that will go deeper into specifically Bonterra Q. You'll see a familiar face. Ben will be there, and we'll be talking more about how Bonterra Q came to be and even demoing parts of it. So be on the lookout for those invitations. But again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see you all at our next session. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.